When people talk about aviation dreams, they usually start small. A trainer, a weekend cruiser, something reasonable. But every aviation brand has another side, a side where budgets disappear, compromises end, and the airplane becomes a statement. Today, we're exploring the most expensive plane from each major brand in 2026. Not to sell you one, but to understand where aviation ambition really peaks. And here's the question I want you thinking about as we go. At what point does an airplane stop being transportation and become something else entirely? Let's begin. Cessna Citation Longitude. When people hear Cessna, they think 1172s and Skylanes. But the citation longitude sits at the absolute top of the Cessna pyramid. This is not an airplane you fly casually. It's a transcontinental machine built for CEOs, flight departments, and serious missions. The cabin is wide, quiet, and pressurized to levels that reduce fatigue dramatically. That matters more than most people realize, especially as pilots age. Long flights feel shorter, calmer, and less demanding. The avionics are deeply integrated. Automation doesn't replace the pilot, it supports decision-making. This airplane represents what Cessna does best at scale: stability, predictability, and global support. Ask yourself, is this still flying for joy or flying for responsibility? Piper M700 Fury. Piper's most expensive aircraft in 2026 is not a jet. It's a single-engine turboprop that pushes the limit of what single pilot really means. The M700 Fury is fast, very fast, faster than many light jets with a simpler ownership structure. For retired pilots, this airplane sparks debate. On one hand, it's incredibly capable. On the other, it demands discipline, training, and respect. The cockpit is modern and clean. Systems are automated, but not hidden. The airplane expects you to stay ahead of it. This is the kind of airplane that asks a quiet question. Are you still sharp, or do you just want to be? Let me know in the comments where you draw that line. Cirrus VisionJet SF50 G2+. Cirrus changed aviation by asking a radical question. What if safety came first, even above tradition? The VisionJet is the most expensive aircraft Cirrus makes, and also the most controversial. Single-engine jet, single-pilot certified, parachute-equipped. For some pilots, it's the future. For others, it feels like cheating. But there's no denying what it offers: simplicity, comfort, and confidence. The cockpit is designed for pilots who want jet capability without jet intimidation. The systems manage complexity quietly in the background. This airplane isn't about raw performance, it's about controlled access to speed. Would you trust a jet with one engine and a parachute? Many pilots already do. Beechcraft King Air 360ER. The King Air name carries weight, and the 360ER carries it farther than ever. This is the most expensive Beechcraft in production, and arguably one of the most respected turboprops in the world. What makes it special isn't just performance, it's confidence. Twin engines, long range, high altitude capability, exceptional redundancy. For older pilots, this airplane represents mastery. You don't buy a King Air impulsively. You arrive at it after decades of flying. The cabin feels like a business jet. The handling feels solid and reassuring. This airplane doesn't rush you. It doesn't surprise you. It expects professionalism and gives reliability in return. Is this the peak of practical aviation? Dassault Falcon 10X. Dassault doesn't build airplanes. They build statements. The Falcon 10X is one of the most expensive business jets in the world in 2026, and it exists to remove limits. Ultra-long range, massive cabin, fly-by-wire controls adapted from fighter jet heritage. For private pilots watching this from afar, it represents a philosophical extreme. This airplane is not about flying, it's about arriving unchanged, no matter the distance. The cockpit reduces workload while increasing situational awareness. The airplane flies smoothly through weather most pilots would never consider entering. This is aviation as luxury engineering. Would flying this still feel personal or purely professional? Gulfstream Gulfstream G800, Gulfstream's most expensive aircraft in 2026, pushes range and speed beyond what many thought possible. This airplane can connect cities without stopping, and do it faster than almost anything else in the sky. The cabin altitude is exceptionally low, reducing fatigue. Windows are massive, noise levels are carefully controlled. Everything about the G800 is about endurance, human endurance as much as mechanical. This is not a pilot's airplane in the traditional sense. It's a crew environment, a system. Still, many pilots dream of touching something like this once, just to feel what ultimate refinement looks like. Is this the destination or the end of romance? Bombardier. Global 8000, Bombardier's Global 8000 competes directly with Gulfstream at the very top. In some ways, this airplane is even more focused on comfort than speed. The cabin is divided into true living zones. The flight deck is designed for long-haul decision-making. This airplane doesn't brag. It performs quietly, confidently. For pilots, it raises an interesting question. When an airplane becomes this capable, does the pilot become manager? Or still an aviator? Think about that and share your thoughts below. Embraer, Praetor 600. Embraer's most expensive offering sits slightly below the ultra-long-range giants, but it punches above its class. The Praetor 600 is efficient, modern, and deeply automated. For pilots transitioning from smaller jets, this airplane feels logical, not overwhelming. It shows how far avionics and system integration have come. This airplane proves you don't need to chase extremes to reach excellence. Is enough sometimes better than everything? Honda Jet Elite 2. Honda Jet doesn't chase size, it chases precision. The Elite 2 is the most expensive Honda Jet yet, refined rather than reinvented. Over-the-wing engines, efficient performance, and an intuitive cockpit define its character. For owner pilots, this jet feels approachable. It doesn't try to dominate you. It's a reminder that innovation doesn't always mean bigger. Sometimes it means smarter. Would you choose refinement over raw capability? Now let's pause. Every airplane on this list represents the absolute peak of its brand. But here's the truth most people avoid. The most expensive airplane is rarely the most satisfying. These machines exist to show what's possible, not necessarily what's best. So here's what I want to hear from you. Which of these airplanes still feels like real flying? Which one crossed the line into something else? And if money didn't matter, which brand's philosophy would you trust with your time in the air? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because the most expensive airplane isn't always the one that takes you the farthest. Sometimes it's the one that takes you away from why you started flying in the first place.